Joining me now is California Congressman Ted Lieu. He is a member of the House Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees, and it's always good to see you, my friend. So let's get into this because we have 9 Republicans who've joined Democrats to advance legislation requiring the DOJ to release more information on Epstein. Democrats on your Judiciary Committee, you want a hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi. Are there enough Republicans in GOP leadership or otherwise to make any of this happen? And what might that look like?
Thank you, Alex, for your question. I want to remind the American people that in February of this year, the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, went on national TV and said that Jeffrey Epstein's client list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now. Where is that client list? Why won't she release it? This is a case of the highest levels of government protecting the rich and powerful. And the reason this story won't go away is because it's about a pedophilia ring. Women who were underage were raped and abused, and we now have wealthy people who are being protected. The Attorney General of the United States can release that list, and she needs to do it right now and not protect pedophiles. Also, House Republicans can issue a subpoena for that list, and they need to do that as soon as possible.
Look, we know a number of Republicans are vocal about wanting all Epstein material made public, but what are you hearing privately from your colleagues on the other side of the aisle?
A number of them, in fact, do want the Epstein files released, and the overwhelming majority of American people also want the Epstein files released that have not yet been released. There's already been some that have been released. There's a lot of information out there on the Epstein files. You've got multiple pictures and videos of Donald Trump. You have Donald Trump on plane logs with Jeffrey Epstein. You have really bizarre quotes from Trump about Epstein. And then most recently, the Wall Street Journal released this creepy letter that Donald Trump wrote about to Jeffrey Epstein on his birthday. So who knows what else is in the files that have not yet been released. And the House Republicans who control Congress could issue a subpoena right now for those files.
Let me just say about that letter, Donald Trump denies having written it, although the Wall Street Journal does stand by its reporting. But let's get to Senator Dick Durbin, who's calling for the DOJ's top leadership to respond to FBI whistleblower information that suggests agents were instructed to flag any records mentioning President Trump. What do you know about that?
I said repeatedly that Trump is all over the Epstein files. And now we know that the FBI is flagging all references to Trump in the Epstein files. And if Trump wasn't in the Epstein files, why would the FBI be directed to flag those references? But this is more than just about Donald Trump. Again, this is the highest levels of government protecting the rich and powerful. And what we need is for all the information to get out. We should not have the Attorney General of the United States protecting pedophiles.
All right, we're going to pivot to what's happening in your backyard because Los Angeles is the epicenter of the administration's crackdowns on immigrants, with the effects of ICE raids felt citywide and beyond, certainly. People are afraid to go to work, sir, or they're afraid to go grocery shopping, attend church, walk outside. Recovery from the devastating January LA wildfires, that is stalled because immigrant construction workers, they're staying home. What are your LA constituents telling you about all this?
Well, first of all, the Department of Homeland Security is engaging in massive racial profiling. Under the law, the only way you can arrest someone is you have to have probable cause. And the only way you can detain someone is you have to have reasonable suspicion. You cannot use race or ethnicity as a basis for probable cause or reasonable suspicion. And yet that's what ICE and Border Patrol are doing. They are just going to parks in LA, going to Home Depots, and just rounding up brown people. That is flat out unconstitutional, and a federal judge has said so. So I want people to know that in many cases, ICE agents are acting illegally. You have the right to protest. You have the right to monitor their actions, to document, to film them in public. And I urge people to do so because many times they're acting illegally, and it's making Angelenos afraid to go out and do their everyday work.
And you're hearing that from your constituents?
Absolutely. And this is going to harm the economy. In fact, inflation already exceeded expectations last month, rising to 2.7%. Core CPI increased to 2.9%, even more. And when you have folks who are not going to work, that's going to drive up increased costs on all sorts of economic items, as we can't have produce being sent to people in America who need it. We have all sorts of folks who are no longer going to work, and that's going to harm the economy as well.
Let me ask you, as a veteran, Your thoughts on the Army veteran arrested by ICE during that raid at the cannabis farm in Camarillo last week? George Bettis, who works as a security guard there. He was pepper sprayed, dragged out of his car, and pinned to the ground despite identifying himself with proof that he's a U.S. citizen, something that he carries on himself now. So during 3 days of detention, he was never told why he was arrested or why he couldn't contact a lawyer. He wasn't allowed to shower or change his clothes that were covered in tear gas and pepper spray. What is going on? Is there a legitimate explanation for this kind of treatment of a U.S. citizen?
Well, not only is ICE in some cases acting illegally by just targeting people who have a different skin color, they also end up targeting or not targeting, but in fact, arresting or detaining U.S. citizens. And that is a major problem. And the Department of Homeland Security still has not explained why in a number of cases they are arresting or detaining U.S. citizens. And that is also flat out illegal. And again, I urge people to document what they're seeing, to film in public what they're seeing. People have the right to protest, to speak out. And I just want people to understand in many cases, what we're seeing is actions by the Department of Homeland Security that cannot be justified.
Sobering times. Congressman Ted Lieu, our friend, thank you very much.